trapped emotions all seem to just congregate there. Because trapped emotions will usually go to some area of weakness or some area of injury in the body. And they can congregate there. And so that's what they did. Well, anyway, here's my wife, and I'm testing her to see what is this. And this was a very similar situation. She had 5 or 6 different trapped emotions that were all embedded in the tissue there comprising that right ovary. Now, every one of these emotions, in her case, had to do with women that she knew that had had something bad happen to them. Something traumatic had happened, and so she had developed a trapped emotion about her feelings about that. And every time we cleared a trapped emotion, the pain level would go down. Boom, boom. I mean, noticeable, instantaneous. Boom, boom, boom. Amazing. And we got to the very last emotion, and this emotion had to do with a feeling of worthlessness that she had gotten when she was in, I think it was first grade. I believe it was first grade. There was a presidential campaign going on. It was Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy, I think is what it was. Yeah, when John F. Kennedy won, 1960, I guess it would be. Anyway, the newspapers called the school, and the school picked 2 kids to be interviewed by the local paper, and they were going to do this little story, human interest story, and they were going to come and interview 2 little kids and ask these little kids, how would you vote if the election were held today and you could vote? How would you vote, kids? So the big day came, and they had lights set up, in this area, and they took these 2 kids in, Jean and this little boy, and they sat them both down, and they ended up not asking her any questions at all. They interviewed the little boy and asked him, and then that was it. It was over. They packed up all the lights and the cameras, and they left, and she was ushered back to her class. And it dawned on her how unimportant she must be, you see, how worthless she must be. That's what she got from that, And so that feeling of worthlessness overwhelmed her, and the emotion got stuck, and where did it land? For some reason, which we don't really know, it landed in her right ovary. And then that ovary accumulated some other emotions over the years, until finally the distortion on that tissue got so strong that it was literally causing intense physical pain. And so we finally released that last emotion, and the pain was gone. Think about that. So you see what happens, what's going on in the world is that people, everybody, has these trapped emotions. We're all walking around with these things. They are making us sick. They're affecting our lives because they interfere with our being able to experience life like it should be. We're not our baggage, but our baggage, our emotional baggage is really what this is. Our emotional baggage can derail us and can make us follow paths that we would otherwise maybe not take, you see. Well, there are so many stories that I could tell you, but I get emotional about this because, because there's so much suffering, that goes on. There's so much suffering that goes on in the world because of these things. Let me tell you one other one. I have twin boys that are 17 now. Excuse me for getting emotional. I sometimes do that. Hard on my makeup, probably, right? Anyway, is my mascara smeared? Anyway, I've got 2 boys that are 17 years old, and when they were little, we went through a period where they were about 3 years old or so, and they had always been very affectionate with both my wife and I, but for some reason around age 3 or so, one of the boys kind of turned against me, and it was weird. It was like he called me bad doctor, He knew I was a doctor. He'd say, I'd try to be close to him and try to give him a hug or whatever, and he would say, bad doctor, away, and he would swing at me, And, everybody thought it was kind of funny for a while, but then he didn't, we thought, oh, he'll grow out of this. But he didn't. It went on. It went on for about a year. And one night, my wife and I were sitting, she was sitting holding him, and I was sitting across from her, and I leaned over to try to give him a hug, and he said, bad doctor, and was angry and swung at me, and and I just was getting to a point where I felt like, that really hurt. It's like, I don't understand what's going on. And I really felt it. And my wife said, well, maybe we should test him. We were just learning about trapped emotions, see, at this point. And she said, maybe we should test him to see if maybe he has a trapped emotion. And so I thought, yeah, let's do. So we tested him. And we tested through a surrogate. We used her as a surrogate, and I'll show you how that works. But we found that he had a trapped emotion, and the emotion was grief. That he had grief, or that actually it was that I had grief about him at some point, which probably if you would have lived with them, you'd understand. I remember one time, the two of them, we had white carpet in our bathroom, and I remember one time the two of them together would do amazing things. They got lipstick, and they ground lipstick into the carpet. It took us like all day. Seems like it took us all day and all night to clean it up, and then the next day they did it again, So, they did crazy stuff. So at some point, he picked up that I had an emotion of grief about him. And so we cleared the emotion of grief on him by just using a magnet on his back 3 times. And he walked right over to me, and he put his arms around me. Now, this was a year that this boy, would swing at me. And I thought, I started to cry. I couldn't believe it. It was just astounding. And I thought, I was astounded that a trapped emotion could have that profound of an effect, and that the response could be so immediate. I couldn't believe it. And I went to work the next day, and I was all excited because I thought, if a trapped emotion like this had such an effect on my son, there have got to be other kids, there have got to be other people, that have the same thing going on. So there was a woman in my office, I was telling her about this, and she said, you know what? I think my daughter's got a trapped emotion. Because, she said, my husband is an airline pilot. And he'll be gone for days at a time. And when he comes home, our daughter, who is 6, will run and hide and doesn't want to have anything to do with him. And it breaks his heart, and we don't know what to do. And I said, well, hey, bring her in. Let's check her. See, we got Kleenex, and I'm the one needing it. How do you like that, Gwen? Yeah, we always have Kleenexes at these things. Usually not for me, though. It's usually for other people. Anyway, so I said, well, bring her in. And so she brought her in, and we checked the little girl and found she did have a trapped emotion. And it was grief, as I recall, about her father being gone so much. So this trapped emotion got stuck in her body, and then it created this behavior, this alteration in her normal behavior. When her dad would come home, she just couldn't deal with it. She'd run and hide because the emotion was there. And so a week later, this woman comes back into the office, and she says to me, Dr. Nelson, that really worked. She said, when my husband came home, she said, last time we were in here, you cleared that trapped emotion on my daughter. My husband, a few days later, came home, and she ran and jumped into his arms. She's never done that, you see. So that's what this is about. The book, The Emotion Code, okay, is about this work. It's about trapped emotions. It's about how trapped emotions affect us and what they do, and it explains it all in detail. And it's taken me a long time to write it, but it's almost done, and it'll be available really soon, probably 6 weeks on Amazon. And so, anyway, this is really important stuff because I'm telling you, it's really affecting people. People literally are dying from trapped emotions. They're dying from trapped emotion. First of all, here's some important points, okay? The number one most important thing is that you always want to obtain permission from whoever it is you're working on. Because in this seminar, we teach you some very powerful tools for getting information from the body. And we teach you tools that you can use to get information from other people's bodies as well. And it's a blatant invasion of their privacy if you don't get their permission. Okay? So you always want to get people's permission before you treat them, before you test them, before you work on them. That should go without saying, but it's really important to ask about. It's really important to get permission. Another thing is you don't want to ask questions about the future because the future hasn't happened yet, and it's very difficult to get good answers about the future. This testing has a purpose, and the purpose of this testing is to find out about things that are happening in the now, in the present,